disallowed goals, comebacks, and bad refereeing decisions. Serie A podcast this week for the fans. We're here for you guys, the fans. We're here for me because I'm a fan. And we're also here for Bruno from Inter Worldwide. Bruno, how are you, Bruno?
Matt, I'm good. As an Inter fan, I'm not. But as a Serie A fan, it's only getting more and more exciting every week. It's been one of those seasons where no team has just taken the reins and destroyed every single team. It's just been entertainment after entertainment. Last week you mentioned 41 goals. There was 37 this week, and it's just goals galore, and the disallowed goals and the refereeing. It's just entertainment. It's a great time for Serie A football for the neutrals.
Yeah, no, it's a far different game to when I was growing up, and you get a 2-0 result, and you just think that you destroyed a team. 2-0 is an annihilation, and at 2-0, if everyone got a 2-0, you're looking at 20 goals per round. But right now we're at pretty much an average of 4 goals a round, and it's ridiculous. There's so many goals, and the Italian league is really not based off the old school defense anymore.
Yeah, it's an entertaining league. You've got players from across the world. There's the USA player from Juventus who's performing extremely well. You've got Spanish, Portuguese, Brazil. You've got everyone. So you haven't just got that stale, same type of football. Every team playing the same way. It's just such a mixture. It's internationally. The reason they were created was to bring the international players, but now it's just spread across the entire league, and it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch.
Were they 100 years before their time?
Yeah, we could probably go down that path, but look, it's we'll cover more and more of that. So without any ado, I actually watched the first half of this game live. It was the Atalanta-Crotone. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know much about this game. Atalanta, they were gifted a chance and they didn't take it, but then they scored, and then they scored again, and then they're playing against a team that after that had conceded 17 goals this season. So you almost expected Atalanta to go on with it. Atalanta, the goal scoring machines, like 6-1, 7-1 is a normality for them, but they weren't really that convincing. Crotone got back into the game, and then there was a moment of madness where Atalanta put a ball in, and it was intercepted by Crotone, and they missed it. And that could have been 2-2. But on the whole parity with the game, I think that Atalanta deserved to win, but they weren't that convincing. But they have done this with Champions League coming up as well, and I think most teams leading into a Champions League game haven't been that convincing. I guess with a compacted season, I think any team is happy to win these games.
Yeah. Look, I watching the first half, it was all Atalanta. They were playing against a very defensive Crotone, and like you said, you'd expect them to put 3-4 past these teams, but I think they're taking the Champions League a lot more serious this time round, especially after last year they lost their first 3 games in the group stage and they went on to qualify. They're trying to make the path a little easier this time round, and especially when you're coming up against a team who have lost the strength in their defence in Van Dijk and Liverpool this week in the Champions League. I'm sure they fancy their chances of getting some points from that game. But yeah, look, Atalanta, the result, I reckon, was a very fair result. But at the end of the day, I think they're just getting the job done and moving on to the next game. It's not we're getting the job done and more. I think they're just getting what they need to do. They're getting it done, getting over the line, and moving on to the next game because, it was an interesting game. They got 2 quick goals and then Crotone hit straight back, and you just thought there was going to come that equaliser, which almost did, like you said, but well-deserved win. They did control possession for the majority of the game. So overall, it was a well-deserved, and I think it was an expected 3 points for Atalanta.
Yeah, Crotone, they look certain to go back down, unfortunately. 17 goals is a lot of goals against. But, we go from Atalanta and we lead into a familiar team in Internazionale against Parma. And Parma actually have a good record against Inter. Inter really haven't beaten them in the San Siro for a little while. Lukaku scored half the goals for Inter so far this season, leading into the game. And Parma bring on an 18-year-old in central defence, which, making his debut is a big sort of thing. De Vrij was clearly at fault for both goals for Inter. He's up for renewal, and there's a lot of talk in the press about his renewal coming up. Inter's your team. How did you see the game?
Look, going into the game, I was very cautious, especially with our main talisman in Lukaku not being fit for this game. He was ruled out on the Friday before we played, so approximately 32 hours before the game was played. So I wasn't too excited to watch the game. I knew what the result wasn't going to be pretty, but I also knew it was going to be a test for Conte. And I just feel Conte failed again as a manager. You spend $20 million on a striker to be backup for Lukaku, but instead you put a winger in Perisic as striker in that game. And you know that Alexis Sanchez isn't also available. So why not start with 2 strikers? Why start with a striker who is really a number 10 and a winger? I knew we were lacking. You mentioned at the start refereeing, and this was one of the games where the refereeing did play a part. But I will get to that in a second. I just feel Gervinho, he was an inter-target pre-season. No agreement was made, and he just had the game. And it was just terrible defending, but doesn't matter how bad the defending is, the striker has to be on point, and we've seen Gervinho on point twice. Formation-wise, look, Kolarov, when he's in centre-back, you worry, you panic. He's not good, especially against players like Gervinho who were just running off the park. But there were a couple of amazing balls he put into the box, and I'm not sure if it's a Serie A record. I'm sure it's a record some point this season, but 52 crosses across the game. So you're averaging more than 2 crosses across every 2 minutes. So they were really attacking. It's been the story of Inter this season. They cannot take advantage of their chances. They cannot take advantage of their chances. They did have a goal disallowed by VAR for offside, which clearly was offside, Terranocchia. But the talking point of the game is the penalty which should have been awarded to Inter. It was when Inter were down 2-1. So what impact it could have had on the game, you don't know. If it happened earlier on, Inter have a different game plan moving forward. If it happened when we're 2-2, Inter have the 3 points. But for the referee boss to come out and say it should have been awarded a penalty, and Italians are very strict when it comes to their referees, and their boss always backs them. But for the boss to come out, and he's done it a couple of times this season, It hasn't just been this game. A referee in a Juventus match was sent to the Serie B to referee there. The referees from last week's Roma Milan fixture have been suspended, but he's come out again and he said it should have been a penalty. And it just raises the question again: what is VAR doing? How is it meant to be used? It's still a very new form of technology in the sport, especially where you've relied on so much no technology whatsoever. You've gone from, those offside goals, Maradona's left hand of God against England. And it was his birthday the other day, and I don't know if you saw what he wanted. He said he wanted to score a goal with his right hand against England for his 60th birthday. But
unfortunately, Maradona's actually just been
admitted to hospital.
Unfortunately, not too sure. They said that it's not COVID. I'm not sure what it actually is. But
point, I think VAR is still being worked out between the leagues itself, and they're still trying to find their role. We saw last season that it was a penalty and they changed the handball rule, and then they've changed it again. But I just feel they're being extra cautious. And you know what? If you're there to review, you're there to review. But at the end of the day, did Inter deserve 3 points? No, they didn't deserve the 3 points. So I'm not too upset with the result. Then again, you mentioned earlier, Champions League this week, and we've got a massive fixture against Real Madrid. So is that on the back of their minds? And they're also going to that game without Lukaku. So it's going to be very interesting. But let's not dwell on that. I don't want to focus too much on that. But the next game, when Bologna and Cagliari, and this is where my goal of the week comes from. It was an entertaining game. So Atalanta Crotone 3 goals, Inter Parma 4 goals, Bologna Cagliari 5 goals. And you know what? In the first weekend, in the first day of fixtures this week, we've already had 12 goals. So, my goal of the week went to Musa Barrow from Bologna. Cagliari came out early. They got the goal. Then right before half-time, Musa Barrow got the goal back. Then Cagliari came out and scored again. And then it was just Bologna. But again, another goal-scoring fest and not a clean sheet for Bologna. That streak is now 39, I think. So there are problems there. What was your take on the match?
Yeah, that goal of the week for you, he did score 2 goals. He scored the first one and he scored the third, but that screamer, it was outside the box. It was, wow, it was deserving of a winner. But there was 3 goals in the first 11 minutes of that second half. So, the complete turnaround too. It was, it's just incredible. Serie A is so exciting to watch. Bologna had 7 players out. They hadn't got a point, a single point in the last 3 games. I just thought that that going into the game, Bologna were probably going to lose this game. I didn't think that they had any chance of really winning the game, only because it just seemed like last week that Cagliari found some form, and Pedro just become the second highest leading scorer for Cagliari of all time, which is really incredible. And the equalising goal, not the equalising goal. The goal that went to 2-1 for Cagliari in that first half was just a brilliant team goal. I think that, I'm very surprised that Bologna were able just to come back in this game. But they did well. They really did deserve to win it. And there's no teams this year that you can go in and really expect to win and expect to remain scoreless against, because most teams they're scoring goals. They're playing very attacking football, which is which is unfamiliar to Serie A. I believe this year more than any other year, teams have gone out and said, you know what, we've got nothing to lose, and they've gone out and they've pushed teams, and I think that, you know. I think Inter's are almost getting the raw end of the stick because I think most teams are actually defending against Inter and trying to get them on the counter. But against most teams, they're virtually coming out and and showing that, you know what, we can score goals too. And that's how I seen that game there. Bologna just wouldn't die.
There was only 2 teams kept scoreless this week.
Yeah.
Out of 10 games, only 2 teams were kept scoreless this week. So it just shows what you said, exactly what you said. And you know what? We're not going to ruin it for you, but yeah, it's a very attacking league.
Yeah. So what do we got next, Bruno?
So Udinese hosted AC Milan for this game, and this was another game I watched live. And Ibrahimovic, he doesn't just score goals, he assists, and he assists well. And he gave AC Milan the lead. He assisted, and gave Kese the goal very early on in the game. It was under 20 minutes. I believe it was 18 minutes, 17 minutes into the game. And with the AC Milan we've seen this season, I thought, yep, game, set, match, right there and then. But then a penalty was given away at the start of the second half, and Rodrigo de Paul converted from the spot, and Zlatan doing Zlatan things wrapped it up and got the goal in the towards the back end of the game. I think it was 82, 83 minutes into the fixture. But AC Milan, they are a powerhouse. 6 games, 5 wins, 1 draw. Currently sitting on their own on top of the table, but it was surprisingly a more even battle than what I expected. I thought, AC Milan's going to do a masterclass on Udinese, but it was a much more even than I expected. Shots were very balanced. Possession, was more in favour to AC Milan as expected, but it was just more balanced, and I don't know if fatigue's going to start kicking into AC Milan, because they do have the Europa League, and they are playing within 3 or 4 days following the Europa League. So when it starts to get more serious, and when you get into the pointy end of the Europa League, and I can see AC Milan going very far in that competition, but when you go into the pointy end, is it going to catch up with the players? And as well as that, injuries, they're going to start playing a part. They've been very unlucky so far, but it hasn't seemed to have impacted them. But pushing on, can they keep this momentum going? What do you think the game is?
Well, it's the 26th game in a row that Milan have scored a goal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're leading by the front line. They're obviously leading by the front line. They're scoring goals. I mean, Ibra set up the first goal. I thought that was so impressive. But then a little bit later on, he had a shot and the keeper saved it. And he done one of those sort of motivation, sort of like, come on, like, let's go, like really firing up the team, just to keep them on their, on their toes. You know what I mean? Like, I think in defense, they don't really look like the finished product in defense. They're making little mistakes. They got caught out, I think, a 3-on-2, and they didn't get punished. I think that they got a little bit of work to do, and it's very hard when you're scoring 26 games in a row to actually keep that balance between defense and attack. I think that the penalty was very soft that Udinese got. It was a nice finish by the penalty. The penalty was finished really nice. It was,
with that ball.
Yeah, it was a quality sort of finish. I think that it's funny because Sampdoria last week, they gave away the penalty, I think it was to Atalanta, for a high foot The foot never made contact, but it was high foot. And Zlatan's finishing goal, you clearly see the defender like move away from Zlatan's high foot. I mean, for the league, I'm glad they didn't take it away because it's a special moment in the league. But I just think if that was in the middle of the field, it's a free kick. I think Milan probably got a little bit lucky, and you just need to watch the replay at the actual defender who clearly hesitated going for the ball because of the high foot. So I think that there was, you know, we spoke about the refereeing. The refereeing's been so inconsistent because they gave a penalty to Atalanta for no contact but a high foot last week. And this time around, they give the goal and there's a high foot and the defender clearly doesn't go into the challenge. So I think Milan got a little bit lucky, in all honesty. I'm glad they got the goal because it, you know, it's a goal that's going to be shown all the way around the world, you know, like, and it's going to highlight Serie A and it's very good for the league. But I think in all fairness, I think maybe the goal shouldn't have stood. But Zlatan is so important to that team. Rebic come back from injury. I think that I read an article today that Zlatan has actually posted out something saying, "Long time no see Sweden," hinting at a comeback to the national team, and I'd love to see it. I'd really love to see. I think he's been unbelievable for the league. He's been unbelievable for AC Milan. Like, I don't think they'd be anywhere near where they are without him. But you know what? Like you said, it was a lot more closer than what anyone predicted.
And I think Zlatan as a player, I love him. And he plays for my rivals now, but I absolutely love him as a player. He's got the attitude off the pitch. And I think other than scoring goals, he does a lot more for the team just being there. And you took the Sweden post as him playing for the national team. I took it as potentially him returning home and playing for his beloved Malmo, who he started with initially. So it could go either way. But for his age, he is playing phenomenally. And I do remember, I think it was last season, he copped a knee injury and they said, look, 6 months. And the doctors even said they've never seen someone recover the way he's recovered, especially at his age. So, you know what? Unfortunately, he plays for AC Milan, but at the same time, it's fantastic seeing him on that pitch because he brings a spectacle along with him, and it is beautiful to watch. But moving over from one legend to another, we move to Spezia versus Juventus. It was the return of Cristiano Ronaldo, who has now no longer been testing positive for COVID. So it's his first game back. He's expected to play the full 90 in the Champions League. He came on early in the second half, I believe, for this game. Juventus did run out 4-1 winners, but again, and I'm sure you're going to cover this, there was a couple of refereeing calls that could have changed, not so much changed the result, but that could have not been given. Soft calls, I think we'll call them a soft call. But Morata finally goal for not being on and not being offside. It was pretty close, but he was onside. And then I think he had one disallowed because he was offside. This guy's got to learn to stay behind the last defender, and I think this is something you learn. And I'm sure you'd be able to discuss this with me because you do coach the young ones. But this is something you teach at a very young age. Stay in line. Or if you can't stay in line, stay behind the defenders so you're not offside, because he scored a hat-trick of offside goals against Barcelona. But offside's offside. But yeah, Morata scored. Ronaldo come on and scored within 3 minutes of coming on, and he had his beautiful celebration. Rabiot gets the third, and Ronaldo had a beautiful tribute to his coach, Pirlo, with a perfect Panenka penalty. But another talking point is Spezia getting that goal as well. It was 1-1 at one point. So Juventus did get the result. The team they played, no team in the Serie A is easy, but the team they did play was Spezia, newly promoted. But it was a lot more even than the scoreline suggests. There were 5 goals scored, but it was a lot more even than what the scoreline suggests. And Juventus had 4 shots on target, and they only had 4 goals. Right, so they converted 100% of their shots on target. Spezia had 3 shots on target, but they had a whopping 9 compared to Juventus's 2 off target. And they had 47-53% possession to Juventus. It was a lot closer. The stats will tell you the game was a lot closer, but I also feel it was a lot closer than meets the eye. What did you think, Vince?
Well, this is Juventus' worst start in 5 seasons. 5 years. They're going for 10 years in a row, and this is their worst start in 5 years. So they're obviously, they're not, at their superpowers like they normally are. And I think with Ronaldo back, I think what people need to understand is that everyone just thinks that Juventus are just going to, destroy everyone, and doesn't matter who's there, they're just going to beat everyone. But when you have a look at the injury list that they have, they got Chiesa back in this game. They got Ronaldo back in this game. Reports that De Ligt is actually coming back after the international break, Alves as well. I don't know about Cellini, but I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of players here. These, if you take a Ciro Immobile out of Lazio, or Lukaku out of Inter, or Dzeko out of Roma, just one single player out of most teams, they're going to struggle. And they're going to struggle a lot. Now, Juventus have actually got quite a few players out injured. So I think it's a credit to them, really. They've got a brand new coach. They're trying a completely new system. And I think that what they're doing is actually not too bad. I think that their style, they're creating their own sort of style, something that Inter had last year, and but Spezia had 8 players out injured, and 2 to COVID as well. So 8 injured players, 2 players to COVID, 10 players out. That's a big disadvantage for Spezia as well. So you can't just say that Juventus had players out. Spezia had 10 players out. That's a lot of players for any team to have out. I think Morata's had 6 goals been disallowed for offside. And you know what? They're not like the Pippo Inzaghi sort of 10 yards offside. They're actually very, very close. Without VAR, I think he probably would have got most of these goals. I think they just would have gave them to him because, yeah, he's running that line. He's running it very, very tight, but he's doing it perfectly. The game is a game of inches. He's got a brand new midfield. I think it's only going to get better. And the fact that he's putting him away as well is only a good sign for Juventus. But it is nice that he did, get the goal. I think he's probably one of Juventus' best signings. I guess twice, because it's the second time round. The Spezia goal was very lucky. It was deflected. Not to say that they didn't they didn't play poorly, because they didn't. They played quite well. The penalty was, it was really bad. You have a look, and we haven't got into the Lazio game yet. And we'll get to that a bit later, but there was an incident in that game. The Perisic, the angles that I've seen on the Perisic, the Inter game, the guy was just all over him. The Chiesa just dropped, and the referee just gave the penalty. And there's nothing VAR can do, because even if there's a little touch, VAR has to go with the referee. So I thought it was a terrible penalty to give, and the way he scored the penalty, I think he only scored it because they were up 3-1. I think it was in stoppage time, and I don't think he would have risked that if they were at nil. Also, Pirlo is still the king because the game is on the line when he took that penalty. You know what I mean? Like he's making it 4-1 here, and Pirlo was kicking it to stay in the game. So I believe they shook hands after he took it. So it wasn't like insulting or anything like that. But Juventus are growing. It's hard to judge Spezia. You'd like to just write them off and say, oh yeah, they come from Serie B and they're going back down. But I mean, 10 players out is 10 players out, and
especially with a small club, 10 players is big. You look at a club like Juventus, 10 players, you still got a pretty decent team on the pitch.
Yep.
But yeah, and you said earlier, it is Juventus's worst start in 5 years. And I remember the 6 years ago, and I think it was Napoli challenging for first, and they still managed to win the league. And it just shows how dominant Juventus has been. And I think this season is Juventus's season, to be honest. They're only getting better, and the signings they did make are playing extremely well for them. But another goal fest, 5 goals in that game, and we're going from 5 goals in that game to 7 goals. Torino hosting Lazio. Torino, before this game started, were only on 1 point. Torino, after this game, are still on 1 point. They were on the bad side of a 4-3 win for Lazio. I'm not going to say too much about this game. I'll just go through the goal scorers. The lone E player from Manchester United, Pereira, scored in the 15th minute, and then it was bang, bang for Torino. They got Bremer scored in the 20th minute, followed by a penalty, which was converted by Belotti in the 25th minute. Terrible penalty, but it got through. Milinkovic-Savic made it 2-2 in the second half, and then Lukic in the 87th minute made it 3-2. And then a penalty in stoppage time, followed by, which was converted on the spot by Immobile, followed by Concedo goal in stoppage time. This is a goal fest. I don't think this should have happened to Torino. It shouldn't have gone from 3-2 with 2 minutes to go to 4-3. But it just shows where they are this season. You will give us our in-depth analysis, and you did mention some referee discussion before this, so all yours.
Yeah, look, this result is only there because Torino let it happen. In the end, once it hit 3-2, Torino they were dreadful. It was late in the game, but we'll start at the start, and Marici, Lazio's record signing, puts in a cross. Patrick squares it, and Pereira scores a cracker of a goal. But then, Acerbi loses his man. It was poor defending from a corner. He lost his man. It was an open header. It was level, and then the goal scoring hero for Lazio gave away. In the end, he gave away a penalty. I really didn't see it. I didn't see the contact. Belotti fell down really poorly. He fell down, like he'd been shot almost. But then he converted he did convert the penalty. But then Verdi actually got tackled in the box, and it just looked like a clear penalty. Torino should have had another penalty, and the referee said no, and the VAR didn't go for it. And it just looked like the penalty they got did not look like a penalty, but the actual penalty, I thought that they should have had a penalty, Torino. So I thought they were very unlucky not to get a penalty. And then Verdi also missed the open goal. The ball was squared. There was absolutely no one there, and he missed an open goal. Patrick also missed a very similar sitter early, so I guess they rule each other out. Lazio went into the game not knowing who they had. They had covert players like Chiro, Lucas Leiva, Strakosha that were just, like hours sort of before the game allowed to play. So this is disruptive play, for a professional league. They go into a game, they don't know their strategy, their tactics, because all of a sudden they got all these new players. So they started most of these players on the bench. And then in second half, they bring Lucas Leiva on, and they bring Akbar Akpro. Um, you know, if you do a Google search on this guy, you're really not going to find much. He was playing in France, and then they just let him go because he was injured, and Salernitana signed him, which is owned by Lazio. So Lazio bring him in, and this guy, he runs around the midfield like nothing you've ever seen. Like in a radius of 5 meters, whatever ball is there, he picks it up, and he's absolutely like phenomenal player. And he's come from nowhere, but he's 28 years old. That's the only disappointing thing. He's 28 years old, but he changed the game for Lazio. He lifted the intensity, but even from all that, Lazio had a throw in, and there was another defensive mistake. Wesley Hoyt didn't read the throw in. Torino got it, and they scored the goal. And then went into stoppage time, and it's not the first time that this has happened to Lazio, because they've done it. They've done it a few times. They done it last year. They scored 2 goals in stoppage time to come back from 1-0 down to beat Cagliari, and they done it again this time. Chiro took a shot. It come off a defender's hand, then ricocheted to another defender, hit his hand as well. So it was like a double handball. Went to VAR. The referee didn't see it. Went to VAR. They gave the penalty. Chiro scores as he does, but then 98th minute winner from Concedo, and this is not the first time he's done it. He scored, I think, 5 goals in stoppage time for Lazio, and you're talking about a player that doesn't score many goals. So, that's a lot of goals. I'd say he's probably scored 60, 70% of his goals in stoppage time. But there was 4 defenders around him, and he got about 4 touches before he actually put it in the back of the net. And I just think that it's determination by Lazio that they'll be riding a high on this, but I think it's just poor defending by Torino. And all season, Torino's been scoring a lot of goals. Unfortunately, they've been conceding a lot more.
Yep, and could put it any better, but as well as that, Torino should have taken advantage of the situation. Lazio do have a game they'll need. They think is very winnable in the Champions League this week. So you're up, you score a goal in the 87th minute, you think it's game over. You don't expect 2 more goals to come, but from that 7-goal thriller, we go to a 2-0 win for Roma, who were hosting Fiorentina. One of the 2 games where a team was kept scoreless. I did watch a part of this game, and it was an early goal to Spinazzola and a very easy tap into Pedro Rodriguez. But I think the talking point isn't the Roma victory here, and I think it's what's happening with Fiorentina. And I mentioned that last week, and I'll mention it continuously. They're not the team they once were. They're currently sitting in 11th spot, 3 points behind Lazio on 7 points. But I just feel they have some really good games, but then they just like a light switch off. And the team you saw play the week earlier is not the same team you're seeing now. And it's interesting. Similar situation happened that 2 late goals were scored against them against Inter in match day 2. So you're just expecting something better of them. But I don't think there's much more to talk about on that front on my end from in regards to Roma. There was a red card in that fixture for Fiorentina, but that was in the 88th minute. Both goals had already been scored. There was no coming back. They just did not look the threat in this game. They had 1 shot on target for the whole game. So even if they got 100% of their shots on target in, they still had not done enough. So, what do you? But one shot on target, 59% possession. It doesn't. Something's amiss there. But what's your opinion, Vince?
Well, I mean, there's two things, and I really don't want to say the first one, because the first one is that Roma absolutely dominated this match, and it was their best game of the season. But on the other hand, it was Fiorentina's worst game of the season. They were dreadful. The first goal Roma scored was a ball from the goalkeeper that went straight through, and and they scored off that. Like, the goalkeeper got the assist. It was terrible. Like, but that wasn't the start of their problems. Their poor goalkeeper was making double saves. You know, he was making save after save, and there was a double save in there. Like, there was a corner. There was a corner before the double save that Dzeko almost scored as well. You know, like, Fiorentina were terrible. They were really terrible. Roma, they just did, they found so much space. Now, it's very hard to actually see, was it Roma really good, or was it Fiorentina really bad? Because Fiorentina this year, I said last year that, like, they're just not consistent enough. They don't have the balance right, Fiorentina. But in this game here, it was really, really bad. It was just a one-sided game. Clear-cut chances. Like, it could have been 6-0. It really could have been 6-0. Not 2-0. I think 2-0 flatters Fiorentina. This game really should have been, like, a massive, massive score. And look, the red card at the end was, look, it was a very stupid challenge, but it was probably very unlucky to get sent off, because the way he slid in, it was like, well, he slid in with his boots. He got the ball, and then his studs actually hit the player after he got the ball. It was one of those unlucky but stupid tackles. So it's like, well, I'm always, if you hit someone with your studs, then, if you get sent off, you get sent off. So, it's not like it's a bad call from the referee. But I seen an article, and I think the writing's on the wall that Prandelli might be heading to Fiorentina. And I think that that's a really positive sign for Fiorentina, because Fiorentina don't have the money to get a good coach. This is what the problem is. Like, if they had the money to get a really good coach, then they would have done it. But, it's just a shame, because I think that they're a very talented team. I think that they should be up there. But I think that Fiorentina, Fiorentina and Inter, they could be fighting in about a week to see which coach gets fired first. You
said that it was Roma's best game season. I think Roma are the surprise package this season. They're the only team to take points off AC Milan in a terrible refereeing fixture, but I do believe they also took points off Juventus this season. Yep. So they've dropped 4 points against AC Milan and Juventus, but the most impressive factor is they took points off AC Milan when they were, on the winning streak to start the season, and no one else has done it. And, it's always an accomplishment to take points off Juventus. So, look, I just think in regards to Roma, they're looking strong, but they're the type of team that can look really good, but then just disappear. And we've seen it in the past. They've been up there. They were nowhere near Champions League qualification last year. They currently sit equal fourth, I think. We're on 11 points with Napoli, Inter, Hellas Verona. But you know what? They've dropped points to some pretty decent teams. But moving on, from one scoreless team to another scoreless team, and people are saying this was the upset of the round. But I think you and I will both agree this is just the light being shone into people's eyes to see. It was Napoli nil, Sassuolo 2. Sassuolo are now sitting nice and pretty in second place on the table, 2 points behind AC Milan. Didn't think I'd be saying that, but Sassuolo do start the season very well almost every single year. But it was 2-0. A couple of things here. Okay, you could probably say it was more 1-0. The Napoli defense just gave up at the end, and in the 90th minute, Maxim Lopez scored a goal where he just went through the team and just took his time, got his shot away. But I think Napoli were destined to lose this fixture from the get-go when a terrible pass by the goalkeeper ended up at, and I don't want to mispronounce his name, but it's Osinhim, something along that, the Napoli striker, and he had no one in front of goal, had to tap it in, and just waited way too long, and the keeper came and saved it. It was a great save by the keeper, but it was a terrible miss by the player. And I think from that point, it just did not look like Napoli's day. You know what? It was Sassuolo had the majority of the ball, but it wasn't by much. And you know what? Sassuolo are one of those teams where once they get a lead, good luck trying to get it back. And if they have that lead and they become equal and the scores are level, good luck trying to get that winner, because they're the team you need to get ahead. And once you get ahead, you keep going. But yeah, not disappointing disappointing if you're a Napoli fan, but I just think this is what Napoli's been all along. And, it took a half-decent team to show us. And you know what? We could have seen it earlier, but they decided not to face Juventus. But yeah, what's your opinion?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm exactly the same. I said last week that I'm not convinced with Napoli. I'm really not convinced. I think their defense is terrible. Their defense is making poor mistakes, poor giveaways. That Osman, I'm the same as you. I mean, you got to put that away. It's a gift. It's a gift. And how many times do you see Lukaku, Chiro, Ronaldo, like all these players, they'll put that away. It's an absolute gift. He put it on a platter. He said, here, I'm over here, the goal's over here, and the goalkeeper got back. Like somehow the goalkeeper kicked it from the byline, 6 yard sort of line, to the player, and then got back to say it is terrible. It is absolutely terrible that he missed that shot, because that would have changed the game completely. Even though Sassuolo are really good at coming back, but that would have changed the game completely, and he missed it. And yeah, I think that last goal really sort of just proves the point that Napoli's defense is horrendous. There was four defenders, and Maxi Lopez I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. He went. It was so bad.
Was playing a game of FIFA with their controller.
It really was. It was so bad. Now, look, Insigne was out for Napoli, but Insigne has been out for long periods of this season, and Napoli has still gotten these results, and they've gone up the table, and everyone's like been talking about Napoli. But the biggest story was that Caputo and Baraghi were both out. Baraghi was out. Italians internationals, both of them. They're the heart and soul of that Sassuolo team. A lot of teams will whinge if you take players out of that caliber out of your own team, and yet Sassuolo were missing two of their biggest name players. Like, if you had to go through the Sassuolo team and start naming players, they're the first two players you name, and they were both missing. They never played a minute, and Napoli still couldn't win. And it was played in Napoli. So this is a terrible result for Napoli. This is a brilliant result for Sassuolo. Are they second, third, Sassuolo?
They're 2 points behind AC Milan in second, outright second.
Unbelievable. It goes to show you money doesn't do everything. Money really. I think Pirlo really wanted Berardi. That's what I heard. I think that Pirlo really wanted Berardi, and he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay there. He wanted to stay with the project, and I guess now you see why.
Well, look, so far this season, there's been 18 points made available to the teams. AC Milan has obviously taken the most in the league, only dropping 2. But for a team of like Sassuolo, who have only dropped 4 points, I believe, and it just emphasises where they're at, and they're not a team to muck around with, and they haven't been a team to muck around with at all. But moving on, it was the derby, Sampdoria Genoa, another 2-goal game where the points were split between the two teams, 1-1, where, you know what, it was the 23rd minute and 28th minute goal game, 2 early games, and Genoa haven't really impressed too much this season. Sampdoria have done a bit more in my eyes, and going into the game, I thought Sampdoria playing at home, they beat Lazio, they beat Atalanta, they're facing an underwhelming Genoa this season. They should get the win, but in derbies, passion is more than performance, and I think that's something we saw. But yeah, it was a 1-1 result. I don't really have much to say about this game. And this is one that I didn't actually get to watch too much on, but it just shows you could be on top of the mountain one week and struggling the next. What do you think, Vince?
Well, it's quite funny because top of the mountain struggling the next week. That's really the way Sampdoria finished last season. They started last season struggling. They got Ranieri in, and they managed. On the restart, I think they were second or third, or they're right up there with AC Milan from the restart with how many points they got. And if they would have won this game, they would have been up to third. That's pretty impressive. Genoa had the 4-3-1-2 formation, and Samp was a 4-4-2. It was quite funny because that's the way they started, but Genoa had the best first half. Look, my goal of the week was in that game, that Yankado. It was a screamer, from outside the box. But Genoa dominated pretty much the first half. I thought that Genoa absolutely dominated the first half. Pandev, incredibly, Pandev is just full of running. He just wouldn't stop. From an attacking player, he was actually playing out wide as well. Unbelievable for someone that old to have so much mobility and just keep on going. But Sampdoria really dominated that second half. Clear cut chances. Good saves by the goalkeeper. I feel like Sampdoria, this season has just been insane, and a team like Sampdoria, if you go back to the early 90s, you think Sampdoria, this is a team that's going to come fourth or something like that. Back when, there was only one team going in the Champions League. And I mean, are we looking at a Sampdoria doing the same thing? Is Ranieri bringing this Sampdoria to a Leicester Sampdoria? I'm not even kidding. I thought that they've actually bought quite well. Kiefer Bale, he had 2 decent shots. troubled the goalkeeper really, really bad. So I think he's been a brilliant signing for them. Maybe coming of age because he's still very young. Spells with he started off at Barcelona, then Lazio, Monaco, loan at Inter. Now he's gone to Sampdoria, so he's very familiar with the Italian league, and I think he's finally coming of age. He's got the number 10 on his jersey, so he knows that he's the man. You know what I mean? And I I think watch this space. For a team that almost was going to get relegated, I think watch this space with Sampdoria.
Yeah, definitely. And when you're toppling teams like Atalanta, like Lazio, you're no joking matter. Especially when you're a team like Sampdoria. But yeah, definitely they are. Watch this space. But one of the most impressive wins was in the final fixture. It was Hellas Verona 3, Benevento 1. Hellas Verona leapfrogged and moved into equal fourth, I believe, with Napoli, Inter, and a whole host of teams on 11 points. But yeah, it was a great game to wrap up the match day 6, and Hellas. They're causing problems yet again. Since they've been re-promoted to the Serie A, they've just been one of those teams that are just a nuisance to play. They are a nuisance to play, and a team like Benevento, you should be wrapping them over, 3-0, 3-1, but they've done it in style, and this is the team that I believe beat Juventus. Hellas Verona. Did they beat?
I think
draw.
Was it draw? It was a draw.
Draw with Juventus. This is the team that drew with Juventus, who, might have had their worst start, but Juventus is Juventus. I believe, Dybala gets more money than the whole team combined at Hellas Verona, but at the same time, they're doing wonders. And are they what Sampdoria is aspiring to be this season? I think we could be seeing Hellas Verona, if this consistency stays as is and the league doesn't stop, potentially in a Europa League position. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, Juric was tipped to go to Fiorentina. He was very, very close to going to Fiorentina. I honestly don't think that he suits Fiorentina because I feel like he's a coach that, if you finish in the bottom 10 and you take his philosophy, then you're actually going to be really, really good because the way he fields his team and the way they play, they against the strong teams, I haven't seen a team use the counter-attack as well as they do. That they when they do their counter-attack, there's so many numbers up front. There's just so many numbers up front, and they generally don't need that many chances because they surprise other teams. Their first goal was sensational. Like, their first goal was a great team lead-up. There was a back heel in it. It was really quality goal. Like, I mean, if you're a fan of a team like Verona and like most people coming from other leagues just tuning in, they're not going to recognize anyone that plays for them, but they got so much quality in and it's the whole team sort of effort. But in saying that, Benevento, Verona actually had a double save to keep Benevento out before they actually got their equaliser. But the goal they scored was unstoppable. You're not going to stop that Benevento goal. Like, it was high up in the net. It was just ridiculous. And then Benevento had they had a penalty shout, and unfortunately, the striker had a go at the linesman, and he got a red card. It was game over. it's a bit tough, but it was like a very emotional game. There was a lot in it. The players um were committed, like they were, like both teams. You know, obviously Verona's always like that, but Benevento, like I've just been. It's going to be real a shame if they get relegated. You know, it's really disappointing if they get relegated because I think that they put a lot of effort into their games. They have a lot of shots. They've been fairly unlucky, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like they could have virtually, you know, leveled up earlier than what they did. You know, but in the end, that red card was probably telling, and Verona, Verona, they play differently when they're playing a probably not a juggernaut team, I guess, and they did attack a lot more, and I guess in the end they deserved the win, and they got it.
Yeah, I think Benevento is the classic Lecce of last year, where they play beautiful football, entertaining football, but will they get over the line? And I don't know. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. And with Inzaghi at the helm, it's definitely going to be close. But before we wrap up, just do a short skim of the table. AC Milan do still remain first, 2 points clear on 16 of Sassuolo, who are on 14. Juventus and Atalanta share third place on 12 points. Fourth place, there is a host of teams on 11 points. Napoli, Inter, Hellas, Verona, Roma. Sampdoria and Lazio are sharing fifth place on 10 points. Then we go to 7 points where Fiorentina and Cagliari share that. 6 points, there are two teams in Bologna and Benevento. So Benevento sitting on the table in 14th, but they're a bit higher because a lot of teams are level at the moment. Then a host of teams on 5 points. Genoa, Parma, and Spezia. Udinese on 3 points. And Torino, Crotone sitting equal last on 1 point. There was a lot of changes towards the top of the table. Not much of a change towards the bottom of the table. I think the three teams below on the bottom remained where they are. But, yeah, it's shaping up to be one hell of a run into Christmas. We do have match day 7, which is next weekend. Then we will be off for international break. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think that, you normally say to me every year that you need 4 games. But I think that now, we're finally at the point where we're kind of seeing teams and we're kind of seeing a pattern. And I think probably worrying would be Fiorentina, that they're a better team to what they've been playing. I think, like you said, Roma are actually punching above. I think Fonseca is doing a great job. Juventus are obviously they're learning. Atalanta look like they're focusing on Champions League, so their performance has been down. Some teams have been hampered by coronavirus, but I think that the league table is pretty much where it is. And Sassuolo, I'm guessing as an Inter supporter, you'll be hoping Sassuolo can maybe leapfrog AC Milan sometime soon. But
I think you're right. The table is starting to shape up. I don't think we can call the top 4 or top 6 just as of yet, but I do think the teams who are on 10 points or more at this current point are just going to be changing positions amongst them. And Lazio, who are sitting on 10 points at the bottom of that scale, can easily be in top spot after a couple of games. It's only 2 wins. They're only 2 wins behind Milan, and a bad streak can come at any time for any team. And you know what? Even Inter, they have not been performing well at all, and they're sitting in equal 4th on 11 points. So it's very tight. It is taking shape. Who will be up there? We have this conversation almost every day, and we come up with a different answer every day. But you know what? The best part of it all, it's entertaining. It's entertaining, and we're bringing that to you. We're bringing that entertainment to you, the fans. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Leave a comment below. We'll be more than happy to answer any of them. And this is where you leave it, Vince.
Yeah, right. Don't forget, like and subscribe. and from Serie A for the fans, and we're here for the fans. We're here for you guys. So signing out. Ciao.
Ciao.